on this 4th of July weekend, and all the complexities it may raise for some, we hear Jesus say something that sounds almost backwards. Come to me, all you who are weary and are carrying heavy burdens. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. It's an odd invitation. A yoke is not the first image we think of when we think about freedom. We celebrate freedom by remembering independence. We give thanks for the liberties we enjoy and for many of the foundations of this nation. Freedom is a cherished word, and we are outraged when it is threatened. Yet Jesus does not say, throw off every yoke. Instead, he says, take mine. His listeners would have recognized that image immediately. In Jewish tradition, teachers spoke of taking on a yoke as a way of embracing a way of life before God. A yoke was not a burden. Instead, it was more of a pattern for life. It shaped your heart, it shaped your relationships, and your obligations. Everyone lived under some kind of yoke. The question was, whose yoke would shape your life? Well, that question hasn't gone away. Our lives are shaped by many things, by work, by fear, by politics, the pressure to perform, to prove ourselves worthy. Many of those yokes, they promise freedom, but many just leave us weary. Jesus sees that weariness. But before we imagine he's speaking about our busy schedules or emotional exhaustion, and we all know what that feels like, the gospel writer invites us to remember where Jesus began his ministry. His first public words that Jesus ever spoke were on that hillside. They were the Beatitudes, right at the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the peacemakers. These blessings are spoken to people of that time, people whose lives were shaped by poverty and oppression, grief and uncertainty. They knew what it was like to carry burdens they hadn't asked for. They were living under the weight of empire and under religious systems. So now Jesus speaks again in this morning's gospel, in the reading today, and here's what he says to those same people. He says, "Come to me." His invitation is not an escape from the world. It's a continuation of the teachings of the Beatitudes that he began on that hillside. The kingdom of heaven is drawing near. And now he invites people not simply to hear about it, but to enter into it. Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." That word learn is in the language of discipleship. Jesus is not offering new information. He's instead offering a new way to live. Discipleship is not just agreeing with Jesus from the distance. It's walking beside him until his life starts to shape our own. The image of the yoke, it tells us something really important. Jesus doesn't stand at the end of the road calling instructions back to us over his shoulder. Discipleship is not just a lonesome activity. Jesus is walking with us. His life becomes joined to ours. His compassion teaches our compassion. His trust in God slowly becomes our own. This is why he can promise us rest, not because discipleship asks little of us, but because we are no longer carrying life according to the more temporary, exhausting demands. The word rest is so much richer than just taking a break. Matthew's Jewish readers would have heard echoes of Israel's story when Moses stood on the edge of the wilderness, unsure how he could possibly lead God's people forward. God answered with a promise. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Rest was never merely the absence of work. It was a gift of God's presence. It was the assurance that Israel would not be walking alone. It was the hope that one day all that wandering would lead to homecoming. Now Jesus dares to make that promise his own. He says, "Come to me, and you will find rest for your souls." And this is quite a claim. Walk with me, he says. Live as I live. Let my life become yours. That's what discipleship looks like, and it changes how we understand freedom. Well, this weekend we're considering our life as a country and how we can pray for our nation and participate in our civic life and seek the common good. But our Christian baptism, that gives us an identity even deeper than citizenship. At the font, Christ placed his yoke upon us. We promise to continue in the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to seek and serve Christ in every person, to strive for justice and peace, and to respect the dignity of every human being. These promises are not just obligations. They describe the way of life that Jesus himself is living. They are what his yoke feels like. They teach us how to walk through the world with him. And this means that Christian freedom is never freedom from responsibility. Instead, it's a freedom from everything that keeps us from loving God and loving our neighbor. So perhaps Jesus asks us a different question. It's not, are you free? But who are you walking with? Because everyone carries some kind of heavy yoke. Only one yoke leads us into a full life. Only one bears the weight with us. Only one forms us into the people we promised to become at our baptism, people who love God, who love our neighbors, and follow Christ together. Amen.